Today, we're going to write a powerful protagonist that's layered and interesting, and that your readers will remember for years to come. What I like to do is think about what kind of symbol is my protagonist, and how are they going to be the driving vehicle for the narrative. For example, my debut novel, which is yet to release on August 4th, is a science fiction set 1,000 years in the future. I need to ground that story through a relatable character. I'm a 26-year-old guy myself. Where's the best place to look from my own experience? My protagonist is called Markel Westlace. He's an 18-year-old frustrated male. So already, I've now got a symbol for my story. You might be a 35-year-old woman from Texas who's writing medieval fantasy. So your protagonist is a leader of the Southern Fairy tribe. Whatever. Point is, you're using a symbol to express your own experiences through, so you can write a more convincing character naturally, which is the path of least resistance because you're writing from your own experiences. They're the driving vehicle because they connect to the story's themes, and you're going to have an idea of the environment you've set up and this protagonist that you're starting to materialize, the kind of themes and the things that you want to say. Terminal 1, my science fiction, this is 1,000 years in the future in London, United Kingdom, in sort of a grey dystopia, hyper-capitalism. So having an 18-year-old young frustrated male, that's a great driving force for those themes. Think in spheres. What kind of sphere or world do you want to explore, and who is that central symbol? Now, I like to break personality into two parts. Inherited traits. These are traits that they're sort of naturally born with. Are they naturally a bit more cunning and cool and calculated and have a bit more of that sort of numerical mathematical mind? Or are they a bit more free-flowing and creative like me? This part 2 is environmental traits. This is how the environment has shaped your protagonist in their upbringing and in the choices they've made. So let's take my protagonist from Terminal 1. When we open the book, he isn't a genius Albert Einstein spouting off facts left, right, and center, but we see it through the dialogue and through his actions and his thoughts. He's got a natural way with words. He's quite perceptive. And on paper, he's decently academically smart. He can put two and two together. Now, the environmental traits for Markel is that he's grown up in this sort of claustrophobic, hyper-capitalist environment. This is going to take a toll on his personality, especially being at that malleable stage of an 18-year-old male where you are so impressionable. In the world of Terminal 1, this is happening 1,000-fold because there's so many holograms and flashing lights and it's constant overstimulation. So the environmental traits that I'm now thinking for Markel, paired with his inherited traits, is that he's quite easily distracted, he's quite dismissive, he's quite arrogant, and he's brought up in the mid-levels of this 99-level tower of Terminal 1. So he's not extremely poor and he's nowhere near extremely rich. So he's sort of the equivalent of like a middle-class resident in my sci-fi setting. Gonna have a bit more of that snooty nature in comparison to someone brought up on the lower levels. See, already we're starting to get an idea of the kind of character and the kind of vehicle that Markel's becoming, and we haven't even decided his hair color yet. You started to materialize your protagonist. Now here comes the bit that makes your reader identify directly with them, which is the character flaws. Now, in the real world, we see celebrities do this. They portray this authenticity that they're just like you, the reader, the viewer, whatever format it is. Like, woo, I'm so quirky and relatable. And then, we get excited and go, they're just like me. And then we invest in their product. Essentially, what we're selling in our story is emotions. We don't want our protagonist to be a glossy, perfect person. What we want to do is give them bad habits so I can identify with them and it keeps them turning the page. A big thing that amateur writers jump to is food. They say, what does your character eat? For me, this is quite trivial because if I wake up and I eat an egg, it doesn't mean I'm a bodybuilder. And if I wake up and eat a bowl of Cheerios, it doesn't mean I'm a child with type 2 diabetes. Food for me is a sort of a trivial after effect of some more of those core law principles. So just push the food thing to the side for a minute. That doesn't defy your whole character's personality. This is just a good three-dimensional, textural, trivial thing that can come later down the line to help emphasize what your character is. A flaw I would look at is some micro habits. For example, Markel, because of the lack of mother figure and his attitude towards women, in Terminal 1, in my science fiction setting, there are whores available. You can, pay for sex. So a flaw of his is he's makes poor financial decisions, and he spends loads of his father's money on these Terminal 1 whores. It has a detrimental effect to his relationships around him and the kind of character he is. Another big flaw of Markel's is that he judges people way too quickly because he's quite naturally astute and self-aware, but he draws conclusions really quickly, and that puts him in some dangerous situations. Then come the domino effect of these micro bad habits like poor food choices, drinking, smoking, and all the more tangible textural stuff that will be within your world. The final thing that ties this all together in a neat bow is your character's relationships. The most obvious relationships we can jump to for your protagonist is the parental relationships. The default setting seems to be you make your protagonist an orphan. I mean, I'm halfway there. I did kill Markel's mother off when he's a babe. But the problem with the full blown orphan trope is that you're straight away snipping two major opportunities to develop your character through their relationships by not having a mother and a father there. Because we, us as people in the real world, have siblings, uncles, aunties, parents, cousins, second cousins twice removed. You will, throughout your life, had some sort of connection or relationship to other people. So be careful of the whole isolation element and just like stripping every relationship away from a protagonist, unless that is the driving vehicle of your story about how they are an antisocial protagonist. With Markel, in my story Terminal 1, even though he grew up without a mother, he's got his father, Victor Westlake, and he's also got a very interesting other character, which is his father's best friend slash business partner, a character called Pascal. And he's sort of like the slightly druggedy uncle kind of character. This is very important for Markel because in those early chapters, we see a very interesting trio triangle dynamic when all three of them are together. In fact, in Terminal 1, the opening chapter is that triad dynamic. He's had to sort of step up and in a certain way pick up some of those fatherly qualities that Victor didn't give to Markel. So use your character relationships to help shape opportunities between your character and the plot. What kind of language does your protagonist use? The word choice, brevity, and the exploration of their own language. For example, if your protagonist is a thoughtful scholar, they may have more drawn out sentences, and they might be able to adapt to various social situations when they encounter new characters. And also, this is going to be affected by your character's age. Authors write a smart child character, they have the mistake of making them just sound like an adult. You can have a very bright child, but they're not necessarily going to have the political awareness to be able to change their timbre and tone when around different characters. You can use this to your advantage. For example, Markel in Terminal 1, he's 18, yeah, he's still got lots to learn, and he hasn't seen a lot of the other levels. He's not very culturally educated, and that comes through his like dismissive tone. And when he's in a new environment, he's quite judgmental through his thoughts. The looks can sort of be a manifestation of all those choices you've made as a writer. Markel in my story, for example, not had to work a day in his life, so he's a bit scrawny. His father, Victor's quite tall, so he's inherited a lot of that height. He's got this sort of mop of black hair. So these are all manifestations from the things that we've established at the start from his character traits. And it's kind of interesting that way because then the physicality sort of write themselves. So think about how the environment sort of goes hand in hand. Let me know which aspect you want me to go further in, but I hope you enjoyed this video. Really, I would love to hear your thoughts of what you want next.